Hey guys, it's your radio host Lady P and Cousin Howard. We've got a special guest on our panel tonight. Are you okay? Oh, and anyway, this is the New Relationship Show. And tonight we've got a special guest joining us on the panel, dating coach Grace Lee. If you remember, a couple years ago, we had her on in the lounge, and we were talking to her and Rachel from A Good First Date, and she even helped me with a wonderful dating profile, and I got firsthand to see what guidance that they offer as dating coaches. It didn't work for me because the pool down here in South Florida with the type of man I'm looking for probably just isn't on a dating site, but the process is great, and I appreciated all the help. And I think she had conversation with Cousin Howard, but we know how cousin is, so I'm just saying. But we want to welcome Grace and thank her for joining us tonight.
You've been trying to throw me under the bus.
As we discuss the topic and our letter. And the topic was actually based on a video that I saw that Grace posted on Instagram about dating during the pandemic. And then when we received the letter and our letter writer was going through issues having to do with pandemic dating, I was like, well, this is the perfect time to talk about it. So we want to welcome Grace. Thank you for joining us. And as well, we've got Naomi J. Harding, our relationship expert out of Houston. J-Man should be joining us. He's also part of our panel, and we get together. We talk about relationship issues every week, things that we find helpful, and we also help with advice letters as we have letter writers writing in for advice. So tonight, though, we are talking about our topic, which is how to date during a pandemic. We will break it down into 5 areas. We're going to talk about having the COVID talk. We're going to talk about transitioning from virtual and outdoor dates into indoor intimacy. We're going to talk about sex, cousin, just for you. We're going to talk about whether or not it's easier just to hook up with our ex and how relationships can be helpful during this time. So, one of the things that I noted, they said, as far as dating, if you can, start with a virtual date. Ask your partner about their pandemic precautions because there are so many different things that have gone on, so many, I guess, different bits of information that we've gotten, and people have their views on it. So you kind of would want to know that. Check on the local transmission rates. For example, if it's skyrocketing where you are, you may want to just stick to FaceTime, right away. And if you plan on getting to the point of getting intimate, get tested and, make sure you're negative, make sure they're negative. Kind of share the test like you would back in the day, the STD test. Like, let me see, you ain't got nothing first, I'm just saying. But let's first talk about having that COVID talk. And
COVID badge.
I'm sorry?
What's your COVID badge?
Huh?
Vaccinated.
Well,
the card.
Okay. Well, okay, so here's the thing. I mean, a lot of people have different views on vaccinations. I've heard the whole gambit. I personally have I received my second dose, so I'm actually fully inoculated, plus the fact that I had COVID back in December, so I guess I have super antibodies. Woo! But the thing is, there are a lot of people who are leery of the whole vaccination process, so it's important to have that talk up front just to see, because then you're talking to someone, you're getting to know them, and they come out with, oh, I don't even think COVID real. Well, I know it's real because I had it. You, cousin, know it's real right now. I'm just saying. So a lot of us have had people we know or we ourselves have been exposed to it. So whereas maybe this time a year ago, we may not have taken it as seriously as we take it now. But it's important to see where they are, what their thinking is on it. If they think it's not a big deal and they're putting themselves in situations that may cause them to be at risk of being exposed, and then they want to come around you, that's kind of something you need to kind of be aware of. If their job, if they're a essential worker and they have to be around, a lot of people, what precautions are they taking? And it's important because it's life. I mean, a lot of people are still today losing their life from COVID. A lot of people have it where it's not as bad, it's more mild, but there's still a lot of people that are losing their life to this disease. So it is certain things that you need to ask them pretty early on, even before you start making plans to meet in person, because you kind of want to assess your risk of getting sick if you start a relationship with this person. And I mean, it may be a somewhat uncomfortable conversation. I guess just like the conversation about getting tested for STDs or, anything like that is not that comfortable, especially, if you haven't even gone there, but you need to do that for your safety. And, the same way it's essential. So, yeah. So, any anyone want to chime in? Grace, you want to give us your thoughts on that COVID conversation?
I think everything that you said is what I've seen and experienced myself. The range of the COVID emotions, I think, when you look back a year ago, it hit us in New York so suddenly, and it was really a panic, and there was just a lot of fear, and especially during that 2-week lockdown, we really, really dug in. At that point, for me at least, the in-person date was just out of the question. And the apps were quickly, evolving so that you could facilitate video dates and all this stuff. So we saw this really interesting shift in the way that people dated. And for most people, it was just assumed that you wouldn't meet in person. So we would kind of date in this way where it was all virtual. And you kind of thought like, okay, well, maybe we'll have one virtual date and then we'll maybe watch a movie together or have a meal together just on camera. And hopefully someday in the future it would materialize into like an in real life thing. And people did that a lot, and I have had cases where, there were cases where people got together after that. There were also cases where people just clung to each other because there was really nothing else going on, and I mean, you can only watch so much Netflix, so maybe this was just like another form of entertainment to a certain extent. I think being single in the past has been kind of a lifestyle. Like, you do your thing, you see people that you want to see. But during COVID, being single really meant being alone. Mm-hmm. And for me, and I've got kids, so it was different, but it was a very sharp, point where, as a single person, I had to really ask myself, maybe a relationship is something that I really should pursue. Maybe this is something that I should prioritize. A lot of people had those conversations with themselves too. And I think overall we did see this shift, and I would talk to clients and they would, especially like men say that weren't necessarily looking for a relationship. They would tell me, oh, well, this COVID thing has really made me think twice, and I really, it's something that I want to pursue. What's interesting is if you look at, the information coming out of the dating app, like Match.com's headquarters, when they talk to their investors, they were saying that during this time they saw a surge in Hinge dating app and Match.com dating app downloads, and Tinder kind of not so much. So you could even see how people were like, okay, no, I need to get serious about this and focus.
Okay.
Now, things got a little bit confusing when it felt like we were kind of coming out of the woods. So we could meet out. Things were starting to open, and yet there were still certain people that were hyper cautious, certain people that were just not cautious at all. Certain people had antibodies. Certain people were younger, and people were all over the place, and it just created this crazy, moral dilemma for everybody. And even for myself, if I went on a date, let's say I accidentally touched his hand, And then I would think, oh my God, I brought COVID into my family, my children, my mom. It just became, everything became like life and death, life and death. And that was just it was just a very hard way to date at all. Um, so there were a few things that happened, I think, that made what, you're referring to, like the communication, so important. So on certain dating apps, you could actually indicate like what you're comfortable with. So you could say, oh, I prefer virtual dating only, or socially distant, with a mask, without a mask. So there are little like check boxes that you could put, and it would be on your profile so that they could see what you're comfortable with. But even before that, there was really kind of set language that I would use when I was talking to my online dating matches. And I would say, for a first date, like, I need to be socially distant. Is that okay? You know? And then on all cases it was. So I would go to the date. Well, I guess to back it up, before I would ask that, I would say, would you be up for meeting sometime? And I would give them three options, like FaceTime, coffee, or a drink. In all cases, they wanted to meet up in person. So that was great. To show up with my mask on, they have their mask on. Usually at the beginning of the date, you would like hug or something like that, but this I would just not. I would just like wave and kind of awkwardly smile. We'd sit down 6 feet apart, take our masks off, have a drink, chat, and then at the end of the date, I would put my mask back on and like not like just wave for whatever that looked like. So it was kind of weird. It was definitely awkward. But the first date in that situation really served as okay, like, do I like this person enough to kind of to see them in a more intimate way? And by intimate, I mean like just being able to say, accidentally touch them, like not in this really clinical, like 6 feet away thing. So when that happened, when I met someone and I wanted to see them again, I would just say for the second date, um, I'd love to, yeah, I'd definitely love to get together. Um, we could either just do like another socially distant date, or if you feel comfortable getting tested, I'll get tested too. Then I would just feel a lot, we can just relax a little bit more. And in a few cases, the guys were cool with getting tested. And so we would both get tested. And then the day of our date, he would like screenshot his test results to me, and I did the same to him. So it wasn't just like, oh yeah, I'm negative. You just show the person the proof. And I was really surprised by how okay people were with doing that. And this is also because testing has just become easier to get done now. And there were also men that didn't want to do that, and that's also understandable. Like, it's a really unpleasant test, and maybe they didn't think it was important enough. And so I just said, okay, well, like, once I'm vaccinated, let's get in touch. And that was fine too. So I think in this case for me, just being really explicit, not demanding, but just saying like, these are the rules that I feel comfortable with. Are you comfortable with them? So you're kind of setting how you want the date to look.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have a choice if they can go ahead with it or not. I was in one case where I had a date that I was really excited about, and he picked me up in his car. I hadn't met him before, and he was going to pick me up. And so I thought, okay, I was just really excited to meet him, so I kind of just ignored some of my precautions, and I just got in his car, and I had my mask on in the car, and he didn't have his mask on in the car. And it was really cold outside, and I wanted to open the windows, but his windows weren't quite open, and so I didn't open my window. And like the whole, like, I guess it was one of those moments where I can see how people would just like not be able to say it in the moment, because the moment was just like getting away from me, because I had already gotten in the car with, and he wasn't wearing a mask, so I had already broken that rule. Then like for me to say no to something after, it just became very complicated. And I look back on that date, I'm, nothing, like I didn't get COVID or anything like that, but I look back on that date and think that's why the communication part is so important. And also I did feel a little bit like that showed me something about him. Like I got into the car with my mask on, I wasn't taking it off, and his was off, and he didn't notice that I hadn't, so there was something there where I just felt like not necessarily comfortable. Um, but I think now that I'm vaccinated, I definitely just feel comfortable going on almost normal first dates, but I'll still always give people the option, like, we can sit inside or outside. I'm vaccinated, so I'm fine with either thing. Um, and for me, it does feel like kind of more normal than definitely than it was a year ago.
Got you. Naomi?
I think y'all have pretty much covered anything that I would have said when it comes to having the COVID talk.
Okay. Cuz?
I mean, I understand. You got to be careful because you want to make sure that you don't catch nothing from that person and that person don't catch nothing from you. So as far as showing your testing results, I agree with that 1,000,000%. And even if you, cause like me, I got messed up when I got on a flight. So, I always tell people, wear your mask wherever you go. Wear your mask, keep your mask on, especially if you're on a flight. Because that's where I caught it on a flight coming back home. It's no fun.
And
It's
just to interject, cousin has joined us today, but he's still in his isolation period. So this is really new as far as the whole flight and him being exposed. Go ahead,
So
cousin.
you had your mask off, cousin?
no, I had my mask on. The only time I pulled my mask down was to sip a little bit of tea, and that's all it took. When I got back last week, Sunday, I started felt feeling weird and out of it, and I went and got tested Monday, and I came back positive. And as I tell people, man, I joke around a lot and I talk a lot of crap, but COVID is real, folks, and it's no fun.
No, it's not. It's not.
And like I said, I joke about it, but until you get hit with it, that's where you really realize where it's coming from.
Yeah. hmm So our next point that we want to talk to is how we should transition from virtual and outdoor dates to indoor intimacy. Naomi, I'm going to ask you to talk on this first, please. You're muted, by the way. Okay.
I'm unmuted.
Yeah, just now, but it was muted up.
Oh, it was okay. It was a delay. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So transitioning from virtual outdoor dates to indoor dates, I would say that once you and the person that you're dating have been vaccinated, that I wouldn't do it before then. To indoor virtual intimacy, I wouldn't do it until then. They say wait about 2 weeks afterwards. So if you and that person have been dating and you've been dating virtually and both of you have been vaccinated and a couple of weeks have gone by, then you can look at moving indoor. And I'm not quite sure indoor intimacy, I'm going to take it just meaning being inside versus
Right.
outdoors and being in person versus virtual when it comes to you using the term intimacy. I would say to do that, but I'm more cautious than most, and so that would be my input: is to at least wait those 2 weeks after being vaccinated. This is someone that you have been already dating and dating virtually, so y'all have developed a relationship, but not just meeting someone and moving it indoor because you say both of you have been vaccinated. So it would be a relationship that's already in progress, that you have developed some level of trust within the person and know for sure that has taken place and it's been a couple of weeks, just so that when you do, there's still going to be some awkwardness, but at least the awkwardness is backed up with some type of research that tells you it's okay to do this. That would be my suggestion.
Right. And when I was doing my research, an article I found said that there are three main questions before, transitioning from the FaceTime and the picnics and the outdoor seating, which is, even with the vaccine, I think, what are the transmission rates in the community? I believe Michigan right now has blown up. And and even though the vaccine is 95, 94, and I want to say the other one is in the 80s, you still not 100%. So I would look at what, how bad is it in the community? Is there like a big spike at this point? And then whether or not I have someone that has in my family or someone close to me that has any pre-existing conditions or health risks that that I need to be careful of. If, for example, my sister is immunocompromised, so that was my thing anyway, because I don't want to do anything that would bring me around, and that's actually what happened. Unfortunately, I also have children, and I don't want to put them at risk. And then, what's the risk of the activity? Is it okay? Well, we want to go out to eat. Well, down here it's warm. It may not be warm up in New York. It may not be warm in Houston either. But down here it's pretty warm. Like today we were 91. So eating outdoors, they've been doing that. It's not like you're out there like I'm freezing in my coat. So it's just some things to kind of keep in mind. So,
I actually I had bought a huge box of hand warmers, like the ones that you take when you go skiing. I have heated socks that you actually have to plug in. It was so cold.
so you can eat outside.
So we could eat outside. I would have this ritual I would put, if it was 32 degrees outside.
Ooh, I couldn't imagine.
So I would put tights, long underwear, jeans, my normal socks, my electric socks, and then I had boots, and then I had this big fake fur coat, gloves, hat. Yeah, usually three long underwear top, a shirt, a sweater, a scarf, a hat, a mask, and I'd have hand warmers in my pockets. I would show up to the date, and it was it took me 3 minutes just to take off half of my stuff, and we'd be sitting under this heat lamp, and it was warm, but it's still cold, and then you have this breeze come through. We were just trying so hard to have a life of some kind, but yeah, for people that live in nice weather places, you would have just laughed at how ridiculous we looked.
And I didn't think anyone was doing outdoor dining when it was cold. I had no idea. And, and I'm saying this knowing that I really haven't dated in over 2 years, even before the pandemic anyway. But, just looking at that. Cousin, you came off camera. Your camera is off, but I see you. Are you still with us?
Yeah.
Okay, so what are your thoughts on that? And again, we're talking about transitioning from virtual and outdoor dates to perhaps indoor.
One thing I've never really understood with this virus, because they put up these plexiglasses in these restaurants and you sit outdoors and all of that. Does the virus bypass you because you're outdoors?
Well, research
Crazy.
has shown that it's safer outside, because in a closed area where the ventilation is not great, if someone coughs and the virus is in there, you have more of a chance, right? of being exposed to it as opposed to the wind blowing, especially if it's 32 degrees, I'm just saying. But research has shown that it's safer in outdoor spaces rather than in an indoor place that may not have the correct type of ventilation. And the fact that over time we found out that the virus was airborne. So, but go ahead, finish your thought.
Well, I mean, because like that's one thing that has always tripped me out with this virus. You know, from day one when they talk about we locked down for 2 weeks, and I'm like, what's going to happen at the end of 2 weeks? Is the virus going to say, oh, let's leave these people alone? Or if you go to a restaurant,
Well, that 2 weeks ended up
6 feet
lasting over
apart.
a year, but I'm just saying. The initial, but you know what? Understandably, though, cousin, when the whole thing started, which was March of last year, no one thought that it was going to be how it was. I mean, it went from 0 to 100 in a matter of weeks. So the initial thoughts, I remember when they told me, you know what, we're going to let you work remote. And it was so funny because, you know, jobs don't do that. They want to see you. They want to see what you're doing. They want you at your desk. And so when they told us that, I want to say it was March 20th of last year. And in my mind, I was like, okay, well, this should be over with by Memorial Day. Flights are really good. I think I'm going to go take a trip to Detroit Memorial Day weekend. Oh, my gosh, I can go like $46 round trip. And here we are, and it's April 2021, so it's been 13 months. And even with the vaccine, we are still seeing areas where, you know, there's spread. We're seeing these new variants and all these things that no one could have foreseen back then. So I believe when they started with the 2 weeks, it was their thought, you know, based on the information they had at the time, that would be enough to flatten the curve. Well, we see that didn't happen, but that was the thought at the time, right? So,
You know, so like even now, like I was in LA. They
that's
still
probably where
not
you
doing.
got it. They probably wasn't on the plane. You probably was sitting too close to some little girl. You wasn't no 6 feet away.
I didn't want to say anything.
Right, that's what
I'm
I'm
not
saying.
sure it was that
Look, come
flight.
back talking about he got it on
I'm
the
not
plane.
sure it
You
was that
ain't
flight.
slick, cousin. We
I'm
know
not
you ain't get
sure.
it on the plane.
LA isn't even opened up as yet. If you let me talk, you realize you just stuck your foot in your mouth.
Who?
But LA isn't even opened up as yet. LA don't open up until June 15th.
I'm sorry, I wasn't talking about LA being opened up. I'm talking about who you were visiting with while you were in LA. Don't play. Do not play with me,
I was
cousin
visiting
Howard.
my two girls. I was hanging out with my two girls in LA.
That's good.
Uh-huh.
That's wonderful. Right,
Uh-huh.
Naomi? We know cousin Howard.
That's one version.
I told you I'll call them and ask them. When I go home to LA, it's to hang out with them,
Of course it is.
not nobody
Of
else.
course it is. But what you have to understand too, all jokes aside, is that whoever you're hanging out with, like you're going to hang out with your daughters, if they're at work and they're around other, I mean, it's so many, you know, different ways, and you know, the people that you're with, who they're around, the people that they work with, who they're around. I mean, it's so many different things. So to keep in mind. So we're not gonna, you know, go there with you on that, but you know, we know you. But we love you, cousin. So we're gonna move on, and this one I think I'll take it first. So what about sex? Now, I thought the article I found, it was some things in there, and it was really interesting to me. So, it was talking about, there was a public health officer who, I guess there were several health officials that suggested that when it comes to getting physical with a partner, people should wear masks and avoid kissing. And New York health officials encourage people to engage in positions facing away from one another to avoid the exchange of breathing particles. That's because the primary mode of transmission is mouth to mouth, so to speak. Particles breathed out by someone infected and then inhaled by someone else. So as I read this article, I was like, so what you trying to tell me is that I mean, I got the visual image, right? Of okay, so you wear a mask. You have on no clothes, but you got a mask on. You can't kiss, and you can only do a doggy style. I'm just, and
That's all.
I mean,
Yeah.
I read the article, and I'm like, oh my goodness. I mean, they were going, and I didn't know till like I was doing the research for this show that that was even something that was recommended and and what they came out to say was that we don't know how much risk goes down when you wear a mask when having sex. I mean, because ultimately you can't have sex 6 feet apart, so it's going to be a high risk activity whether you wear the mask or not to avoid kissing. So I just thought that was it was just I mean because like I said I am in my single journey and I'm not dating or anything at this point, even before the pandemic. So when I read this, I was like, "Are you really kidding? They really told people." I mean, I didn't even know this, but I'm just saying. But okay, so anyway, who wants to talk about sex next? I see Cousin Howard. I see his camera went. I can't see him. You still there, cousin?
But let me ask you this.
Oh Jesus!
I mean, if you want to talk
This
about
his favorite
sex,
subject. You know that. I'm just sharing. What cousin?
if you want to talk about sex, I mean, if you want to have sex during COVID, what do? Wear a full bodysuit condom
I told you
to
what
make sure
they.
you don't,
I just
you don't
told you what the officials said.
I
They said you got to do it
yeah.
doggy style with a mask on, and you can't kiss.
necessarily,
I'm
because
just
no
telling you
It's
what
matter
I
not
what,
even.
read.
I'm a firm believer. If you gonna get it, you gonna get it regardless, right? So
So
whether
is
you
that
get
what you
the
were saying?
shot,
How you had got it? Oh no, you said on the plane. I'm sorry. I'm
you
sorry,
want to go this route, you really want to go this route.
cousin. I'm sorry. You know I missed you. I'm not. You know you're my favorite cousin in the whole world.
You call
But
and check up
the
on me.
description is so the description isn't even doggy style. It's like doggy style, but then two people are facing away from each other. I don't even know
Oh well, how could
exactly
you?
like
Oh, I didn't
what
even
kind of
think about
yoga
that. I was
moves.
just thinking.
That was
I mean,
that
no.
was just
How
your
you know you?
vision. That was
How
just
you
your
know you're
vision,
with the
Lady
right
D.
That's how I
person?
saw it in my mind.
You know.
So
That was just
what
No,
your
was
no.
it?
vision.
Now we
How do
know
you?
what she's been doing. Now we know what she's been
Okay,
doing.
like I
Trying to
said,
play this
I have
innocent.
been single for over 2 years, cousin. So I haven't been doing
This
none
is
of
shoe
that.
polish. This
Huh?
is shoe polish. This is shoe polish. I'm actually a white man.
Whatever. I don't care what you say. I know my truth, which is I haven't been engaging in none of that. So I just, when I read this article, I was like, oh my goodness. I'm just saying.
You know so much about doggy style in the opposite direction and all of
Well,
that.
that's I
But you ain't been doing nothing.
well, I mean, I'm not 20, so I mean, I have done stuff in the
No,
past.
she's.
I'm just saying. I mean, you trying to say what? That I've never had sex? I've been married. I have children. I'm just saying.
I did not say
Okay,
that.
so what are you saying? See, you need to
Sorry,
stop.
ma'am.
You need to stop.
I didn't mean to hit the nail on the head, ma'am. Please forgive me.
Whatever. You just mad because we called you out about your trip. It's all good. So, is that is that all the thoughts on sex, or did we want to talk about that any further?
Grace,
I,
did
I,
you
ju-
have a way in?
I mean, I just think those recommendations
Crazy, but
are just unreal. Like it's just asking people basically what they don't want to say is don't have sex. They don't want to say that. So they're saying something that it's technically correct. Like technically if you're outside and you have masks on and somehow you're both naked but I mean it's just ridiculous, honestly. And I think the second that you make the decision between two people on whatever terms to be inside, like once you're inside of a closed environment with your masks off, you've pretty much crossed that line. And so for some people, like Naomi said, it should be that you're both vaccinated and you're 2 weeks out, and that's what two people feel comfortable with. In other cases, two people feel comfortable with not being vaccinated but showing their test. Like everyone has a different risk tolerance.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the only real way to not get it and have sex is just to do that virtually, and I think a lot of people did have sex virtually during like the height of the pandemic. Um, but yeah, but in terms of these recommendations, I would just say it's, yeah, not doable, ridiculous, comic,
Yeah.
absurd. Like, what's the point of having a regulation like that? It doesn't help anybody.
Right. True. I think just to say something, maybe I don't know, because people probably had all these questions. But what about this? What about that? So, our next part on this is: would it be just easier to hook up with my ex? Now, the interesting thing about this is that recently, an ex has come out the woodwork, and I'm like, and for me, for me, the thought of going there was like, no, not never in this lifetime or the next one. And you know, I think that maybe on their part it was that maybe they were feeling like, well, at least I know her, But I'm like, no, 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 no. But the article was saying that people are really thinking that, well, maybe it's just better to rekindle things, because this is a former partner, and I already trust how they feel about pandemic safety, and that's normal, but that really doesn't mean it's a good idea to, because there are reasons that that person is an ex, before the pandemic, and when it's finally gone, because it's gonna be gone or diminished to a point where we can get to a more sense of normalcy than we have been in the past 13 months, and whatever the same issues were with the ex, those issues will still be there. So I personally don't think that's a good idea to go that route, just because. But people do, because they miss the intimacy, they miss being in a relationship. I mean, being single during a pandemic, I mean, for me, it wasn't any different because I wasn't going out doing anything anyway beforehand. But, there are single people that have more of a life, dating life than I did. So for them, and as you were telling us, it's something that's a little bit more challenging. So maybe in that case, like, well, at least, so and so, I know when we were together, I could, yeah, I couldn't trust him with this because, that's why we broke up. But as far as the pandemic, so I mean, it's normal to feel that way, but whatever issues caused the breakup are still there and will be there post-pandemic. So that's my thought on that. Grace?
Well, it's a funny. I have a personal experience with this because during the pandemic, I did sort of get back together with my ex, and it was for all of those reasons. It was really easy. I already knew him. He wasn't actually in New York, so our relationship was more like virtual, like FaceTime or talking on the phone. And because he was cooped up with his parents and I was cooped up with my kids, we had all the time in the world for each other. So it was really lovely. Like, I felt like things were kind of changing and we were getting so close with each other. And also, it was just such a lonely time with so much uncertainty. So it was really nice. And it gave me a lot of like hope that things would be different. But then the world started opening up again and he started flying around, and I wasn't comfortable with all that travel because of the exposure, and then he would want to see me, and then he would get tested, and this and that and this and that, and there were all these other issues. So when it came into like being in real life, all of the same stuff that was there before just came back. And then it was like, oh, do you want to go out Friday night? No, I'm doing this with my friends. So now that that kind of like captive audience thing that happened when he was at home with his parents, just that those like protections or whatever, that was like what made it work. And then as soon as those things went away, it was like, oh, this is exactly why we broke up again before. Like non-priority, like makes me feel like all those things came crashing back. It doesn't always have to turn out that way. You know, sometimes people change but I think at least for me, it was a very easy option, and it, to some extent, yeah, it did get me through it. It served its purpose, and, um, I don't know, for me, I think it would have been hard for me to like develop a real relationship over FaceTime with somebody new. Some people did, but I didn't. So this is kind of what I needed to get through it, I think.
Got you. Naomi?
Yeah, I kind of echo what Grace is saying with that. If you go into it, it is easier. You know, it is a feeling that it's easier. How they say the beginning, it's easier. And just really going in there with that mindset that this is a filler. I'm at a point where I need to talk to someone. They need to talk to someone. We're going to talk to each other. And this is a filler. And knowing, taking those lessons and knowing, you know what, we had some problems. So we can probably do this on the short term. But unless I find out something has really, really changed, this is just a short-term fix. That's what this is. I'm lonely. I need someone to talk to. Even with whatever we went through previously, I know what I have. And that's the thing we can't forget. I know what I had when I had that versus going in there and saying, oh, you know what, this may be something new. No, this is not something new. It's the same person that you was with that did those same things to you, but I need a filler right now. I need someone to talk to that knows me, that I know the good and the bad while I go through this time.
Gotcha.
And if it ends up being anything else, that's a bonus. But if it doesn't, I haven't eluded myself as to what it is that we're really doing.
Gotcha.
So I would just say take it from that standpoint because it does appear that it's easier. And it is easier if you keep it in the right perspective.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think that's really the advanced dating technique. It takes a lot of discipline to be able to keep that in your head. But I mean, I try to come away with these things with different like growing points, and I think what Naomi is saying is absolutely right. That was really something that I learned. Like, just take this for what it is, and also during the pandemic or during certain times in your life, you don't necessarily need a filler sometimes. I mean, we're humans, and like we need to have connection, and sometimes it's the person that's right there that can serve that purpose for you, and doesn't necessarily mean anything other than that. But the maintaining expectations, I think, would have made that experience so much easier.
Gotcha. Cousin, do you have any thoughts on that?
Never believe in hooking back up with the ex because whatever the reason is that we went your separate ways will always comes back to the surface, no matter what. Okay? No matter how much you try to say he has changed or she has changed or, it'll be better this time around, it won't. Especially during like a virtual thing like Grace said, what I mean? When he was at home with his parents, it was fine and dandy. But now everything is open back up. There's always going to be an excuse why y'all can't hook up, why you can't be like this all the time. And then you get frustrated, you get tired of that, and you realize
That's why I don't like you anyway.
So, I mean, with me, I believe an ex is an ex for a reason. And the best you can hope for from an ex at any point in time is have a good friendship. You know, we see each other, we hang out, we have a drink together, we shoot the breeze,
I have
but
enough
that's it.
friends. Mm-mm. Nope.
You know, but there's no let's hook back up and let's pick. No, there's no picking up where you left off. You were X for a reason. Let's keep it at that. Why go through that hurt a second or a third or a fourth time? Once was more than enough for a lifetime. You know, that's just me. I don't go back to none of my exes. Best any of my exes can hope for from me personally is a friend. If you need something and I can make it happen for you, and make it happen. Okay? But don't come at me and think that, oh man, we gonna get back together. No, we won't. No, we won't. Don't even remotely want to do the virtual sex or nothing like that. I keep it.
We weren't
I
even talking
know
about sex. So how you brought sex into that? You see? You see, cousin? Just saying.
you hear what you want to hear. That's what I noticed with you. You hear what you want to hear. Anything
But you
I said a
just
whole
said it,
lot.
cuz. I didn't say it. You just said
I'm
it.
not going there with you. Not tonight. Not tonight.
Okay. So while we know that relationships can be helpful, you know, if you find yourself not in a relationship, it's okay, you know, and now with the vaccine and with things kind of not being as intense as they were in the beginning, you know, you can go and, you know, take the dating to the next level and see what happens. So, with that in mind, because we have gone on longer than I thought, I want to kind of get to this letter because we got about 10 minutes. So, if I could, let's go to our letter. It goes like this. Dear Lady P, I hope all is well and safe for you during these times. I started last year talking to this great guy. I was across the country for work, and when I came back, we had our first official date. Things were going well. I was hesitant at first to open up to someone new because of bad experiences in previous relationships, but this new relationship was great. When COVID hit our state, the numbers were going up and he was still going to work. He's considered an essential worker. And I started working from home. We started seeing each other less because we didn't know where the numbers would go. After a few weeks, we both agreed mutually to end the relationship. He wound up accepting a job in another state. So at this point, I'm single. I did go on one date since then, and I was very paranoid. Numbers go up, people lie about being tested, and things keep getting worse. I'm trying to be so cautious. Being in a COVID dating scene is not easy. I go on the apps and men just want to hook up, but I've had family members go through COVID and I worry about effects that they may experience later. My patience was tested last year, but I do hope that maybe in the future I can meet someone I can trust. But any advice about dating now or not dating now? Signed, COVID Cautious. So I just, you know, really felt that this letter was so timely because of what we were talking about. So, Grace, would you like to address our letter writer first?
Yeah. Well, I think she's definitely brought up a lot of things that people are thinking about right now. And in her case, if she's using the dating apps, I think um, really having the conversation with somebody, if she feels like there's some kind of compatibility between the two of them, um, and if she's comfortable, it sounds like maybe for her doing a video date maybe feel like a safer option to keep her exposure down to somebody at first, and then really for her just to decide for herself what she feels comfortable with and to go with that. So let's say she's somebody who would only like to see someone who's been fully vaccinated. Like, let's say that's her comfort level. Then it makes sense for her to ask for that, you know, as a prerequisite, and not in like a demanding way, but just to say, I've had these experiences with COVID. Right now, I'm only seeing people that are vaccinated in person, and seeing how they feel about that. Or maybe it's just getting tested. So if someone gets tested, you would want to see a screenshot of their test results, not just, oh, just take my word for it, get tested. And if the other person is okay with it, then she'll feel so much more comfortable. And if they're not okay with it, then she wouldn't have exposed herself.
Mm-hmm.
But the situation you want to avoid is not asking and kind of hinting at it, or, going out with someone, they say they're tested, they never showed you anything, and then you're worried about it, and then they ghost you. Like, that is a situation that I think makes this so much more stressful. So now more than ever, I think just to say things very, very plainly, and really like, would you be open to doing a FaceTime call first, for example? And it's either yes or no. Then during the FaceTime call, if it feels like you want to go on a date, you could talk about, this is what I feel comfortable with, whatever that is. I'd like, I think if you get tested and I get tested and we show each other the results, then I would be totally fine with eating outdoors.
Gotcha.
Or after the second date, it's like, yeah, if you want to come over, like, it's really important to me that you're vaccinated and have been cleared for 2 weeks. But just to be really specific, and so then the other person can make a decision. But I think also, given her experience with COVID, it's right. It's right to be paranoid. Can be very dangerous. And if someone, I guess the point is, like, she's in charge. Like, she's the one that gets to decide the terms. And as soon as she can find the language to explain that, I think that will make this dating experience less nerve-wracking.
Gotcha. Naomi, your thoughts for our letter writer?
Just given everything that we've talked about in this show, first thing I would say to the letter writer is listen to this show, because we address so many things and so many concerns. The second thing that I would say is what I have learned just from talking to people in general and even clients. It wasn't so much about really wanting to date in some instances. It was just about wanting to feel connected. And so we sit up and we decide, am I really wanting to date? Meaning, do I really want to get close to someone, look at someone that may be a long-term partner down the line, or have I lost connection? Have I lost my freedom to connect?
Okay.
And if that is the case, then we look at dating from a different standpoint. It is getting on the app. It is having a virtual meeting. It is finding someone to laugh and to talk with versus even wanting to hook up with someone in person. I just need to feel connected during this time because I'm not connected. So for me, my advice would be determine what is it that you really want. Do you want to date, or do you want to just feel connected during this time? And if you want to date, we've discussed a lot of things to consider when it comes to dating. If you're going to date virtual, if you're going to move from virtual to indoor intimacy, as it was called on here. What about if it does come to sex? How do I even, think about sex? Is it virtual? Is it in person? What are the experts or what are the health organizations saying? And is that, like you say, is that even realistic? So I would just caution that. Just really, what are you wanting to do during this time? Because like I say, a lot of people have just missed connection and the freedom to connect when they wanted to. And so they divert to dating. So that would be my input.
Gotcha.
I actually, I really love that perspective, because I agree, dating is a very easy thing to do with the online dating being out there. So if you feel lonely, you can just go online, swipe, 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 text somebody, and you get that. It's not even a rush. I mean, we're humans and we need connection. For me, just being a single person myself, I have found it go both ways. So I definitely am missing just that connectedness and having an activity partner. And in addition to dating, what I've also been doing a lot more is like reaching out to friends
Mm.
and just saying, hey, like now that I can leave my house, let's get together. And, some of my friends, they live in like Brooklyn, which is, I don't know, like a $30 Uber ride. It's a pain in the ass to get there. But I just think, just go, like make time for people, go see them, like really put more effort into my friendships, get on the phone more, and just to get because when you're feeling lonely and a little bit lost, and then you connect with someone online who doesn't know you
Mm.
from anything, and you're coming at it like wanting, like you want this feeling of connectedness from somebody that doesn't know you,
Mm-hmm.
I think it just can be a very, like, kind of a sad and empty. So to have maybe both things where you're like really feeling strong in your friendships and your family, and then you have this other dating thing on the side as like fun and entertainment. I think that that can work a lot better. But to Naomi's point, which I think is so important, um, sometimes what you actually want is to feel like connected with the people that you love. And when you try to do that with a stranger online, all these other questions come up like, do you want to have sex? Do you want to go to their house? Do you, they won't show you your vaccine card. Like all that stuff, it's just not helping the thing that you need the most.
Yeah, true,
Exactly.
true.
Exactly.
And honestly, with this to the letter writer, this is a good time to practice honesty, set boundaries, and be 100% clear on what it is that you need. If you meet someone online that you think they seem nice, let them know what your COVID rules are, and let anyone know what you require to be comfortable. And if they are not on the same page, keep it moving, because find out too what their rules are. Maybe they have certain things that may even be more stringent than yours that you hadn't even thought of, that you're like, oh, that's a good, that's something good to practice in the future if it doesn't work out with them. But, it's okay. But yeah, I totally agree, with where you, Naomi, said it's about connection. And yeah, we have tons of people. I mean, we're not 20, you know. So we have tons of people that we know that know us, you know. So it's not necessarily the dating, the relationship thing. It's the connection. So reconnect with, your friends, your people that you didn't have time with when you were dating or you were in that relationship because they tried to pull you away from everybody you knew. Reconnect with them. Now that stuff is opening up, plan some things, hang out, laugh. I was just telling my daughter that I'm going to do a painting with a twist because they have these things now. She was in the store and she was telling me because her son, my grandson, likes to paint. And I said, what, I'm going to do that. The painting with a twist, get some things and have people come over and, have some wine or something, like Naomi. I don't drink, but I drink wine. But just, do something where, we can, spend some time together, do something different that we haven't done before and just kind of reconnect that way, and I think that's something I would recommend to our COVID cautious letter writer. Cousin, you have any final thoughts before we wrap it up to our letter writer?
No, no, I'm agreeing with everything you guys said, and you should take all the necessary precautions to go from the virtual dating to the in-house dating, so to speak. And you got to look out for numero uno yourself because nobody else going to do that for you. So take whatever precaution you need to take to satisfy yourself. And if that other person can't agree with that, then tell him to kick rocks. Because COVID is no joke, man. You know,
Why you laughing at Cousin
last year,
Howard, Naomi? I see you.
You know, I love that
last
famous
That kick
phrase.
rocks.
Kick rocks.
Kick rocks.
last year this time, I'd have probably said, man, forget COVID, throw it out the window. It's another form of the flu. But
You would
after
have said
getting
that.
hit
You
with
would
it,
have said that up to last weekend, I would say. But now the
no,
reality.
because
Hmm.
no, I've had people that I cared about
Like when I got
get
it, did you
caught with it.
care? Did you even
Yeah, I
check on me
cared.
when I had it? No, you didn't. But that's beside the point. I'm
Yes,
sorry, I went off topic. Go ahead, finish, cousin.
Lord help us. But I won't follow you up on that. But what I mean, exercise whatever precaution you feel necessary to satisfy you. Don't let nobody force you or try to convince you or nothing like that. Take care of you. Look out for number one, no matter what. When you are satisfied that all your needs are met, then and only then do you go from virtual to in person. And if that person cannot understand that, tell him no problem. We're gonna be friends from a distance. As long as you're over there and I'm over here, I love you to death. Till then, we gonna play this by my rules. No matter how I feel about you, you know, we gonna play this by my rules because at the end of the day, I gotta look out for me. See? If I drop dead, then what? You just gonna move on to the next person. I'll be dead. See? You gonna forget about me within 2 seconds. So always look out for number one, no matter what. Look out for number one. Right? That's
Thank,
all I gotta add to that.
thank you. So I think that we had an awesome show today. I think we were really able to cover a lot with COVID Dating 101. And I think it's so important. I think it's so timely. And I hope that everyone who had a chance to listen to the show really got something from it because it's so relevant to the time we're living in. There's so many still unknowns. And, we hope, which is the reason we come on, the reason we do this show, that something that we shared was helpful to someone that's listening to us. Or maybe if a question comes up with someone and they ask you, you can remember some of the things that we shared with you tonight. So we thank you. I thank you, Grace. I thank you, Naomi, and Cousin, of course, for just participating on this panel and just really helping our listeners, to just think about dating, and really connection, I think, more so. Connection during the times that we're living in because it has caused a big disconnect. There's a lot of issues with depression and things like that because of not forming connections, not being able to do the things that we used to do, this new normal, so to speak. So we come on here, we take the time, we do the research because we want to be of help. So we hope that something we said, something you heard was helpful. And we are super excited that you joined us. And we're going to see you next time. So bye,
Nice meeting you,
everyone.
Grace.
And
Yeah,
thank you
nice to
again,
meet you. Thank you
Grace.
so much for having
All
me.
right.
It was really fun.
No
It
problem.
was
It's always a
fun.
Feel
fun
better,
seeing
Cousin
you.
Howard.
Hope you feel better, Cousin Howard, and love your hair, Lady P.
Oh, thank you. Oh, look, it's only for this week because, I'll be back in my twist next week. But I
I
took
love
it
it,
out and I
though.
was
I
tired.
absolutely love it.
Thank you. Team Natural Afro Puff.
Yeah, looks good.
Thank you. All right, everyone. So have a
Right.
great evening, a great rest of the weekend, all right?
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, bye, everyone. Thanks for joining. So everyone, this has been an episode of the New Relationship Show. If you were able to hear some of it and didn't hear the whole thing, it's okay. We were on Facebook Live, so if you have access to Facebook, check it out. Look for radio host Lady P, and you'll be able to see the whole episode. If you're listening to us on the station, this show is actually going to be uploaded to iHeartRadio. So you can go to iHeartRadio, search for the New Relationship Show, and look for today's episode. And we were talking Pandemic Dating 101. So we thank you for joining us. We hope you have an awesome, awesome remainder of the evening, the weekend, and we'll see you next time, okay? All right. Thank you.
96.2 The Smooth Road. Grown Folks Radio with Lady P.